And I do think it's one of those things where, whether it's the stigma of like, I don't want to share, right? Because, this is my problem. I need to solve it. Or even it's like, I don't want to ask, right? Like, well, I don't want to intrude, or like, I don't want to be nosy. But
All right, everyone. As the noted theologians once said, back streets back. All right. The Restoration Club podcast is back, season 2, episode 6. We're having a blast here. A lot has happened in the past few weeks. It's been, I almost want to say, Danny, has it been 2 months since our last recording?
It's been a while. I think it has been 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, I've been getting fan mail a lot, so they've been really on it. So that's really the heaviest stuff, hitting the comments.
A lot of autographs going out. I believe it.
But today we're joined by our friend Matt Geary. We're excited about getting a chance to just share and talk and do all the stuff that we do here in the clubhouse, of getting to know other people and their stories and how it translates into the world that we live in, God. So the way that we have this is that, Matt, go ahead and tell us a little something about yourself.
Well, I'm glad that my fan mail has finally worked out. It's been writing for a while. Glad I was able to make it on the podcast.
Okay.
But no, gosh, guys, thanks for having me. Just a huge believer in what Restoration Club's doing. I'm a guy from Western Pennsylvania who's kind of had a wandering road through Virginia, Chicago, now here in just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. Blessed to have an amazing family, a wife, 2 adorable girls that, just talking about, are in the prime of kind of the purest form of childhood, 7 and 5. And just get to experience that every day, both the good and sometimes the trying. But just incredibly blessed, to have that all in my life. Yeah, gosh, going back, started my career being very technical, and I've slowly kind of backed my way out of trying to think about how things work, and now I spend most of my days trying to understand how people think and how they work. Day job, I work for Lenovo, the computer company, and I work basically getting customer feedback, running focus groups, doing design testing, and things like that. So love being around people, love hearing their stories, and just kind of trying to understand other people's experiences, other people's problems, and figure out, hey, what can we do for them? And that's the kind of stuff that gets me up in the morning.
I love that, Matt. One of my favorite things, I've never told you this, but like, it's the smoothest, calmest voice. It's just I'm like listening to you. Okay, keep telling me.
I was gonna say, it might be too late recording this.
No,
I'm gonna grab a pillow.
No, it's awesome. It's such a comforting. I can imagine being in your work and having people just really resonate with what you say and how you kind of connect with them. And kind of honestly, like our first run in with you, at least my first run in with you up there at Tot Hill Farm, had that chance to interact with you, and I'm like, oh man, I just enjoy hearing this guy, and then hearing more about your story, having you see the moves from Pennsylvania all over the place, even through a beautiful state of Virginia, where you attended the 3rd best university in the state. Amazing. But
hey, we can all agree where tech falls on our list. So,
that's true. That's very true.
It's okay.
We unify there.
Exactly.
Under ODU. That's right. You made it. You nailed it. No, but what we really are excited about here in the Restoration Club, having a chance to kind of expand a horizon and getting to know people. A lot of times when people think of golf podcasts, they're expecting, like we've had, whether it's creatives in the golf space, whether it's coaches, artists, former athletes, whatever it is, they're there. But with you, there's like this, you're in this technical world that you live in, but you've run into the golf world with us, and it's really, really an amazing part. So how did you connect to Restoration Club in the first place?
Well, I guess you can probably thank technology for that one. I have a close friend here in Raleigh that kept sending me Jeff Marsh content. I mean,
this feels like a through line in every episode at this point.
Pretty much. Yeah.
I'm not going to complain about it. He's amazing. But
Jay, you got Jeff, and then the Stephen Edwards hook will come in here in a second. So if you want the through line there as well, but no, it kept sending me content, and then one day he had sent me, kind of I don't know what you call it, but like the splash video, like the very first Restoration Club content that went out there. I don't have I don't have a home club or anything like that, so I've been looking for kind of more community in the game, more opportunity to get out there with people. And honestly, like, I feel like I came to Christ and my faith kind of later in life, kind of a more, I guess, a less direct way of that. And so, I'd been looking for opportunities to explore that further as well. So I was like, you'd make it very easy. Discord sign up, let me get on, see what's going on there. And, I think maybe a couple weeks after I signed up, there was the Cradle Stolcis down in Pinehurst that Stephen Edwards was, hey, we got this all signed up with, some of the Twilight work that he had been doing, Golfer's Journal, I think, as well. And went down there and I was just like, hey, here's a group of 20 guys that ironically, the night before it was supposed to be like a torrential downpour. And they're like, guys, we were going to cancel it, but like, if you want to come, like, we already have the photographer coming. Well, it's free. Like, get as many rounds in as you can, but it's going to be a washout. I mean, we got down there and I think it rained for like 10 minutes. And it was just like 3 or 4 loops on the Cradle, talking with guys and stuff like that. And then, Stephen, and can get his hooks in you.
Yeah.
And it's tough to let go. So just kind of keeping on those conversations. And then when Builders Club 2 kind of happened, I had been messaging with Jeff and got looped in with that. And, I guess the rest is history. Have been incredibly thankful. Don't get to see everyone as frequently as I know that we all like, but, just having a group of guys that you can reach out to. Certainly a lot of us going through similar things in life, but, I've had, I've had some health scares in my family over the course of the last year. And just to be able to have guys that you can pray with, guys you can reach out to, just the response, right? Like, it's not just, okay, here's a, folded hands emoji, and then we all kind of move on. Like, David Bailey's going to reach out and say, hey, I heard this about your daughter. Like, I think we may be going through similar things. The day after Thanksgiving, Jeff Marsh calls and says, hey, is your dad okay? And it's things like that where it's not superficial. It's like, hey, I may have only seen these guys 2 or 3 times, but I feel like, we show up in a room and all of a sudden conversations flow, and it's like we've known these guys, all our lives. So it's been such a blessing.
That's, I'm thinking about the number of times, like, being in a Restoration Club event, and again, maybe I've seen the guys twice, some of the guys, only 2 times in my entire life, but they are people that I will call and we'll have like real authentic conversations and real walking together. And it is we have the commonality of golf we love, yes, but our faith is the thing that really pushes all of that forward. And it's really beautiful to kind of hear someone else resonating with that too, because we understand, Danny, and I know from the core of this thing, the mission and why we're building it, but really hearing someone else say this is kind of how they've been walking the journey too, has been really powerful. When you came, when you were up there at Builders Cup 2 at Tot Hill, tell us about just the experience of that for you, golf included, but also experience. Tell us about all of it.
Well, Tot Hill was like Tobacco Road, only instead of having waste bunkers, you got trees and out of bounds. So I had less fun there than I had at Tobacco Road. No, I mean, it was there were, probably only one or two guys that I, had met, and then, kind of show up on that back porch before we tee off, just making introductions and stuff like that. And like, okay, we'll see how this. And then, Brad, I remember you, pray and kick us off on the practice green, and the three questions. I think it was something about like, what's going well, what's something that you're struggling with, and maybe what help do you need, or something along those lines. And we were playing. It was me, JT, Steven, and Taylor. And we got to like the third hole, and it was like, hey, who wants to do one of these questions? And it was like the spark, and it was just, hey, this isn't a hard question, but it's maybe something that if you're not as comfortable, you're maybe not going to volunteer that information. But as soon as one person went, it was just like the spark that not only was everybody else more comfortable with it, but everything just flowed. And I remember leaving like, JT was talking about getting engaged, and, we were sharing stories about each other's kids and things like that. And just like, man, I didn't know you 12 hours ago. Like I didn't know you existed 12 hours ago. And now you're like, texting people the next week, and you're like, man, how did the engagement go? Like, going like that. And then, it's guys, and, have been staying in touch with Taylor, and certainly with Steven and everything like that. And it's amazing if you're willing to be just a hair vulnerable, whether it's asking the question, or maybe it's just saying like, hey guys, I'm having a hard time with this. Like, like yesterday I felt like I was a bad dad. Like, and it's just little things like that all of a sudden everybody else starts to open up. And next thing you know, you got brothers. That
I feel like we've talked about that on previous episodes, where there's so many guys that are willing to go spend 4 or 5 hours together. And if you're already bought in for that amount of time, you can set the foundation differently than like, hey, what are we going to shoot today? Or what holes are we going to remember? But actually remembering things about each other, it changes the dynamic. And it obviously, to your point, changes the relationship and what you take away from it. And I'll say, Matt, I remember that was the first place I got to meet you too. And not that other guys weren't this way, but I felt like I remember you being very intentional to call out like what the day was for you. Is that something that is, maybe commonplace to you in other settings or other social settings? Or do you think that there was something different about wanting to say something specific about the day? Because that really stuck out in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I pride myself, or I try to be as, as kind of present and mindful. I think in a lot of our day-to-day life, that's really hard to do. Uh, and so I mean, I definitely, I definitely went into that thinking like, I'm not bringing my phone. I'm not doing like, I'm just going to get away for a second. And I think that, whether that is, is kind of a circumstance or anything like that, but like, that was something that for me was very intentional. And I wish I could do that more. I wish we all could do that a little bit more, of just being present with each other. So maybe I'll take that as a reminder that, hey, when that does happen, good things follow. So I'll take that as a reminder as I go into tomorrow.
And I think you've already coined Stephen Edwards' new nickname, Hooks, because he definitely grabs people and creates community.
Yes, no doubt.
So he's a memorable guy. We've had him on before. So
what a gift. Being able to, I think even, and I know this is the Matt Geary episode, but recognizing that Stephen's had a lot of impact on a lot of the guys that are a part of this. Sure. But that's something that often I feel like, and this is why, like you said, Matt, you were seeking community. You were didn't have necessarily a home club or anything like that, but this gave you the opportunity to connect with people. And this is really a place where you can have true connection with people, and you can be yourself. And at the same time, you can be something for someone else. It's completely reciprocal. I think that's what the beautiful thing is, because men don't always have that. right? We are often compartmentalized to our jobs. Then we'll go home and be husbands, and hopefully we're good ones at that, or maybe we're struggling in areas, or we're this, that, the other, all the ways we try to kind of put ourselves all over the place. But this is one of those opportunities we can just be authentically us, and having that space to just be wide open, which will then, if that's encouraged and more of that happens, I mean, what a better world and what a better impact that your little girls get because dad's connected to men who are cheering him on or pushing him forward. And you get to be that same thing for us. You know, those types of things are really the part that I think gets neglected in the club mentality, because oftentimes it's sometimes only think it's about sport or it's about fun, you know, but this is really about having that reciprocal connection for men and having a place for us to connect and belong to. So I'm glad you jumped in, man. It's been so cool to hear it and see it.
And I do think it's one of those things where, you know, whether it's the stigma of like, you know, I don't want to share, right? Because, you know, this is my problem. I need to solve it. Or even it's like I don't want to ask, right? Like, well, you know, I don't want to intrude, or like I don't want to be nosy. But I think that, you know, just being able to ask the, like, you know, how's it going? Like, no, really, like, how's it going? Or, you know, are you okay? No, really. Like, and I think that's one of the things is it's not just an arena to share where it's like we all sit around and you're like, okay, we're just gonna go around and everyone's going to tell you, what's on your mind or anything like that. But it's just how naturally that it is built into the structure and the kind of the communication and the way that we talk with each other. It never feels like I'm prying, but it also never feels like I have to be ashamed of, you know, how things are going.
That's awesome.
That's well put. Matt, I was going to intrude a little bit to go back to something else you said, because I feel like it may resonate with other people that are listening. You know, we've had other guests on that if memory serves me correct, grew up in a family that was centered on Jesus, grew up going to church, people that found faith earlier in life, maybe all the way up to college, give or take. And as much as you're comfortable sharing, like, what did that look like for you when you say, kind of came to you later in life, and, based on that, what changed for you in the way that you approach things?
Yeah. No, I grew up when I was younger. I went to church. It was kind of like oh, I guess we should do this kind of thing. And, we always went at holidays and things like that, but it didn't necessarily feel like there was a purpose behind it. It was just like, okay, I guess it's summer, it's Christmas, it's Easter, we should be there. And even through, middle school, high school, and things like that, I was involved off and on with youth groups, but it just wasn't something that was talked about a whole lot. And I mean, candidly, I always struggled with it because I came from a very like sciencey technical background. And so like faith and unknown, that doesn't mesh real well. It's like, no, aren't you supposed to get the answer to everything? And what do you mean? Like, there's something that can't be explained. And it probably wasn't, we went to, when my wife and I lived in Chicago, we would go kind of semi-regularly, but when we moved here to North Carolina, it was more of a priority of like, hey, this is going to be our home. Like, we need a home. And I was like, oh, okay. I think I'm in on that. And, we've been really fortunate to find a church here, Church on Morgan in Raleigh, that I think, it challenged me in ways that I wasn't necessarily expecting. When we joined, one of the things that they talked about was, a life worth imitating. That was kind of their tagline. And it was like, that just kind of stuck with me of like, I could wake up every day and that was, that's something that kind of stuck with me. But it also was a place that let me ask questions. And I think that was one of the things that for me, it was like, okay, you don't have to be perfect. Like there's not this like scripted, like, oh yes, like, here's your, kind of cliched moment where like you were at church and it just, it hit you, and now you believe. Like that never happened for me, but I had some. Our pastor recommended a book called Finding God in the Waves. That really spoke to me about a guy who was a pastor turned into an atheist and then basically rediscovered Christ and through science, and like was able to resonate with them. And so it was just this kind of acknowledgement that like, hey, it's okay to have questions. It's okay to be uncertain at times, but you know, it's our faith that we turn back to in those times. It's Christ's love. That's the thing that we can always, even when we don't know that it's there, even though when we're have our doubts, that is always the kind of the rock that we can turn to. And I just being able to ask those questions and being able to not feel like that was something to be ashamed of, or like, I'm not trying to contradict things here, but I'm trying to understand because that's just how I'm wired. And so once I was able to be in an environment like that, that really started to, I think, unlock a lot of things where it was like, you don't need to be certain about like every little detail, but you can be certain in Christ. You can be certain in that love, and just like hold on to that. And that, now that I've had that for probably a decade or so, it's been something that has been a foundation and something to turn to time and time again.
It's beautiful, man. I think that there's oftentimes, I don't know, it seems like someone who comes from the science piece, so to speak, and the logical piece of it all. After a while, you start to put it together. It's almost easier to believe in God than it is to believe in some of the theories that are out there, right? You're like, oh, you believe that maybe a bunch of stars banged and it just happened, and here we are. And instead, realizing that a creator is a possibility, especially with all the fingerprints of that creator all over everything, becomes a really big piece. Because I just probably the same way. It was always that same logical thought process. I'm like, it just wasn't making a lot of sense. But the more I think what happened as soon as I did dive into faith, I started practicing it, and it really started to show evidence in my life, and it really started to be revealed. And I'm like, this is unbelievable. And I know everybody has their own different journeys, but for me, I needed that. I needed that kind of like, I'm going to jump off the cliff for a moment. And I don't have a parachute, but I'm hoping you say you're going to catch me. You're going to, and it happens. So it's really powerful. And I'm glad that you, over that decade ago, decided to do that too, because it's now having ripple effects on the world, because not only with us here, but also that family you're raising, that husband that you are, those types of things, that life worth imitating, is a really powerful thing.
And that was, like I said, that was the thing where it was like, maybe I don't know how to do this right. Like you're a beginner, you're like, I'm not really sure what's the golf or something like that. You're like, this feels weird to me.
Yeah.
But this idea that I was like, okay, what is something, Christ-like that I could do today? What, but just find something that you can anchor into and be like, hey, that's a moment that I'm proud of. That's a moment that, like, yeah, I think that if I told my kids that I did this, or if I told my wife that I did this, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, I think that's right. And so it felt easier to me to actually try to just live that out, like live out those values, and then those start to become who you are. It's kind of like what they say, that you're not like, I would like to run. You're like, no, I'm a runner. And you're like, well, it's not like, I don't want to try to follow. Like, no, I'm a follower. And so if I just live this out, that I will eventually get there if I just live out those values.
Beautiful.
Says you're a new creation, and you've taken on a new identity. So definitely resonate with that. I was going to say, I've actually been reading in Revelation recently, and as you were speaking, it brought something to mind where it talks about how they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And I feel like I've been thinking a lot recently about how you said it so well, like you're just wired differently and approached it differently. And I feel like God takes those things in people, even if it's things of shame, but in your scenario, just questions, and wanting to ask logical questions where, he met you in that and you can wrestle with him in that. But the way that you found him, I feel like there's so many other people out there that probably have similar questions or approach it the same way that now you can speak to and use that same scenario in a way to draw them in.
For sure.
Matt, to transition us, we've hit it on a little bit, and obviously the Builders Cup and getting to take a few swings with you. How did you get into the game of golf?
Man, I don't remember life before golf. It's been that long.
That's nice.
Yeah, it has been a very constant thing in my life. I started playing when I was 6 years old or so. I'm left-handed, but I play golf right-handed because when I was little, they didn't make junior sets for lefties. Kind of a situation. Yeah, it was something that I started off early on, and I was so fortunate that my dad had a membership to our local golf course that was part of his job, and so I got to enjoy those perks. Um, yeah, so be grateful for that forever. Not only for kind of those opportunities, but the my home course, Indiana Country Club, had an amazing junior program. People that were just like cared about kids as much as they cared about the game. Um, Gave us so much flexibility of like we're going to drop you off on Wednesdays and Fridays in the summer, and the whole thing of like drop you off at 6:45 and we'll pick you up before dinner kind of a situation. And
Love
got to
it.
do that for as as long as I could. And yeah, I mean, it's just over the years, it has just brought me closer to so many people. You know, best friends in college. We still do a golf trip, once or twice a year, different weekends and stuff like that. And I think, above it all has brought and kept me really close to my dad. Yeah, for that, gosh, golf has given me a lot. So many days after work, so many nights on the range, so many, trips and things like that, that it's just like that is our constant. And, as many doors have been unlocked with restoration club type conversations, those are the same things where, you're walking up, getting 4 holes in at the sunset, and then you're talking to your dad about things that are going on in your life. So it has brought me so much. Um, yeah, can't say enough about it. And I'm also I'm happy because both my kids are now both very much into the game, which is fun to have a 5 and a 7 year old who on Father's Day are like, Dad, can you come cuddle on the couch so we can watch, we can watch Rory? And you're like, man, I've arrived.
Waited for that. Yeah.
I'm done. I can retire from daddom now that I
That's
got
awesome.
2 kids that, I'm cheering for Rory. No, I'm cheering for Xander. Like, all right, we're there. So it has, and it continues to bring a lot of joy.
How's that patience level doing out on the range?
Well, so now I coach my kids at the first tee of the triangle here twice a week, and so been doing that all summer with my oldest, and she loves it. She never expressed really any interest in the game. I told my wife that I wanted to, maybe start getting involved, and she mentioned to my daughter that I was going to coach, and she said, "Well, if Dad's doing it, I gotta do it." Like, okay, great. And she went. Um, the first class, she had a pitching wedge and a putter, and you have all the other kids that have these full sets and stuff like that. in 8 weeks, she just showed up with a putter in one hand, pitching wedge in the other. After like week 3, it was like, Dad, can we stay after and go to the range some more? And she just got hooked. And so after the first session, we got her own set of clubs, and now it's just like, it, you know, go out on Saturday morning to the par 3 course and get a couple holes in, and so it's been awesome. Youngest is just about to turn 5, so she just had her first class last week. So it's pretty beautiful.
Don't be shocked if we call you up to host a RC event at that first tee venue. I've seen the putting course and the par 3 online. I'm itching for it.
It looks amazing.
Yeah, Tri Golf opened up to the public just last week. It's pretty crazy. Huge investment. I can't wait to see all the good it does for all those kids.
It's awesome. Danny's our resident smoothest swing in the club. Looks beautiful. It's right there. But I'll tell you what, Matt Geary is creeping up on your heels, Danny. This guy is butter. I've seen that thing over there at Reynolds in Winston. We went to the Twilight Golf Open. I guess we call it the Twilight Open a few months ago. It was an absolute blast. But got a chance to see him across the way, and man, what a
unmistakable.
What a beauty. Oh.
The pictures of the swings always look great. No one takes a picture where the ball goes. So.
Or the scorecard.
Exactly.
They do, but they just happen to edit them really well. That's how it works. But no, I think it's funny. You were talking about your daughter just having that pitching wedge in the putter, but that's the foundational part of golf. Like that's where more shots are going to be had with those 2 clubs than anything else. So I have a feeling she's going to do really great, and there's not going to be any issues with that. So that's going to be awesome. Yeah. Love it.
Matt, I don't want to steal your thunder if you're going to speak to it even later on, but I was at least going to mention, I saw you shared on Instagram recently a pretty memorable trip with your dad, and you ushering yourself into the 40 Club. I think I joined it a few weeks prior to yourself, so welcome. The water's warm. We're fishing on the other side. But I was wondering if you could speak to that a bit and what that trip was like. I love and I'll let you speak to it more, but I love the fact that there were plans on the table and aspirational venues, and it kind of flipped itself.
Yeah. This year turned 40. Same year, my dad turned 70 in December. I reached out to him maybe a year or so ago. I was like, Dad, first of all, I don't know why we didn't do this when I was 30 and you turned 60, but let's make up for it. What about let's do a trip? And I called Sand Valley, called Bandon, Stream Song, kind of the usual, higher end suspects, and got all kinds of pricing and stuff like that. And I called him back, and he was like, hey, why don't you just bring my granddaughters home? I was like, well, that's interesting proposition, considering the names of the other courses that I've tried. And he was like, well, I think I got some connections. I got some friends. I think I can make some phone calls and put something together. And as I said on the Instagram post, my dad has had the luxury of playing some really nice courses through work and through connections and stuff like that. But I never remember my dad as someone who kind of was trying to, he was never asked. He never asked for these things. They were just like, hey, Joe, do you want to come along? Or hey, stuff like that. And he was always so generous, when he could, to bring me along. And so it was interesting because I guess I didn't realize how much good favor and all of those. So we were very fortunate. And again, golf brings out and the people that you meet, the people that come into your life through that, through some really generous people. We were able to play Oakmont, play Laurel Valley. We're going to play Sunny Hannah, but it got rained out, and then got to play at my home course again in late July. And man, I'll tell you, it's just being able to share those things with people that you love, and they're things that you'll never forget, and just those moments. We had on the back nine at Oakmont. It was on, I think, 12 or 13, the short par three, and this massive hawk, like it must have been 18 inches tall, just landed on the top of the pin and just like stood there staring at us. We hit our tee shots into it. It didn't move. We all got up on the green, marked our balls. It didn't move. We were 10 feet from this thing until it finally decided to like get off, and you're just like, I'll never forget that moment as long as I live. And again, just through generosity of people, and just being able to spend that time out there and have some good walks and good conversation. It was amazing.
Just getting next year's U.S. Open venue dialed in early for us.
Yeah, it was one of those things because after number two, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, well I remember this, and I remember when I played at this and stuff like that." I have not played number two, but I'm going to be fortunate enough that I'll talk about how hit this shot on five, and left it in the bunker 3 times on 17, and all all these things that when that comes around. So yeah, super special.
Matt, you're this is about transparency. What'd you shoot?
I shot 39 on the front night at Oakmont.
Let's just leave it at that.
And then, because of transparency, 3-putted 10, 3-putted 11, 3-putted 12, and 3-putted 13.
They're always lurking. They're always lurking.
Yeah. Consistency. This is what I'm really gaining, is that you've got a game that's consistent, and so we appreciate that.
I had number 9 to shoot 39 in the front.
Yeah,
good about myself. And then it was quite literally all downhill from there.
Yeah. Hot dog at the turn got him. That's what did it. Took him down.
And awesome. I will say, from the pictures that I saw, your dad is rocking that stash reminiscent of a Craig Stadler. I mean, he wears that thing. He wears that thing well.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I joke with my kids because I don't believe that my dad looks 70, and I get told on a daily basis that I don't look 40. I try to tell my kids that, like, hey, you're going to turn 40 once, and someone's going to card you, and I want you to say thanks, Dad. Like, okay, that's the gift I can give you.
That is awesome. Love it. Matt, does that, with what we've just talked about, that experience of Oakmont and Laurel, where you guys were and all that, even going back to your home course, how beautiful of a story is that? We have this favorite question of what's your favorite memory on a golf course, but it doesn't involve a golf club. I'm interested to hear. Tell us about what that might be.
This is a tough one. I've been fortunate to go to some very special places in the game of golf. When I finished grad school and got my first real job, I wanted to do something special for my parents, and I didn't really think of this at the time. I just had to connect the dots later, but I was like, I want to go to Augusta with my dad. He had never been, and so I committed to going. It was like, November when I had this idea, so the lottery was all gone, and I was like buying all the secondhand Masters tickets that I could. So that was an interesting experience in and of itself. But we got practice round tickets for Monday and Tuesday, and man, like just to be able to walk through the gates, right? Like being able to do that with someone that I love and care so much for, but also to give back to him like a fraction of all the things and that he's done for me over the course of the years. And then just, to see that, because, it was new for him. We could have done all kinds of different things, but I knew that was something that was meaningful for him. And to be able to just, like the wonder in his eyes, we talk about like my kids and like, the things that 7 and 5-year-olds see through their eyes, to be able to see it through my dad's eyes. And, oh my gosh, this is what it's like for the first time. Tuesday, it was, I think it was like 41 degrees when we got there. It was the coldest day, and we just sat in a blanket, uh, on the range and just shared, just to be able to share like a cup of coffee and just taking it all in. I mean, it meant it. I know it meant a lot to him. Um, to be able to like on Christmas morning open up like, oh my gosh, hey, we're going to Augusta. Um, for them to actually just sit there and actually experience it with him, that was the coolest.
That's awesome.
Such a good story.
Now I want to know how much you spent on tickets. Jeez.
Well, it was much less than that.
Yeah.
And it was still, it was a couple $100.
Oh man.
Look what it is now.
Yeah.
Ooh,
It's got crazy.
I've seen those prices. Yeah, they're not cheap.
Yeah. By the way, good news. I didn't make it again. I didn't make it in the lottery, but
Consistency.
I did just sign up for the Ryder Cup lottery, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
And so that's life, guys. Not to put a rain cloud over the sunshine, but we're still living consistency.
The thing I'm hoping, in the next couple of years, but they now have the Augusta Women's National Amateur, or the Augusta National Women's Amateur.
Yeah.
You can get tickets there. Figure that may be a more fun thing for take my kids to.
Yeah.
Little less pressure, and hopefully more opportunity to see some people up close and personal. So
that's a good call. It's a really good call. And I bet it'd be great for daughters to see representation, right? To have that opportunity to see other women playing golf would be a really cool thing.
Oh yeah, they love putting on LPGA Tour and just sitting on the coffee table.
Yeah. Did they watch any of the Solheim Cup?
No, they did not. We were traveling and busy over the course of the last couple of days, but to show some Jeff Marsh coverage.
Just need some slow-mo highlights.
Exactly.
That's right. That's awesome. That's good.
Well, Matt, man, we appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much for sharing your story. Appreciate you as a brother and having you out there with us. Really hoping this gets out there and people enjoy your story and your willingness to be transparent and just share how God has impacted you, brought you to us, and how we enjoy the game together.
Yeah. Well, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and obviously thanks for all that you guys do for RC and keeping it going and growing it. It's a special group. I'm proud to be a part of it.
Awesome. Love that. Maddie, we appreciate you, bud.
Yeah, I got you guys.
Cool. Thank you, man.
All right. That's a pause in it, Matt. But thanks. Man, what a cool venture we just had. I just love that. Being able to kind of walk through all the pieces. And Danny, way to be astute to go back to his story of faith and trying to rekindle that. Like you said, that is something I think that a lot of people will resonate with. And so that's a really good, really good catch there. Solid work.
Yeah. Fun times, guys, man. This was a little nostalgia. So
yeah.
Always a good time.
Absolutely. But let's seriously try to, and Danny, I don't know if you're ever up to, I know you're up for it, but let's try to figure out, maybe get up there and check that Try Golf out. I've just been really intrigued by it, and it's there's probably something in Danny and I have talked about this a couple times. I mean, Jeff's always talked golf course, but like Danny and I have talked about in Charlotte having something like that more available for people and things like that. So we'd love to kind of see what it even looks like, and also hang out with Matt Geary. I mean, who wouldn't want to?
Yeah, and I got since I'm a coach, I have different access times and stuff like that. I can get in when it's not crowded and so forth. And anyone you want to talk to or get stuff like that, we can make that hookup happen too.
It's gonna say I know Billy Richards has been shooting out there, and I'm sure we can grab hooks and Bayston and bring him on out.
Exactly. Matt, who was it? You said somebody up in Raleigh had shown you was sending you Marsh footage. Who was it? Somebody we know?
I don't think so. His name is Russ. Russ was Kirchen. I think I'm not sure if he ever joined the Discord or not. But yeah, he's a good guy that I know through church. Our kids went to daycare together, and then we get out there from time to time. So
that's awesome. Love it. That's cool. It's exciting.
That was, aside from me telling Ryan he needed to come join us at Tobacco Road for the first Builders Cup, that video was the first thing he saw too. So
it was wild. And literally, Matt, it was the next day I had seen it, and Danny DM'd randomly and said, "Hey, bud, do you have any availability to go to this thing?" And I'm like, "Oh, let me shut the world down." Literally, we got a sitter for the kids. We got all this coverage. It was all wild. And next thing you know, I'm in a car and my life's changed. So it's been cool.
Well, it's also one of those things that, like, it's hard. You guys know it. It's hard to get 5 hours away for a round of golf.
Yeah.
But it's also, my wife's amazing and has always been supportive and trying to get me to play more golf, which is something you know how this works. Like, I don't take care of the kids when I'm doing that, but she knows how much it means to me. But she's even said, like, when we talk about like different golf trips and things like that, and as like Builder Club 3 comes around, like, she's like, you got to prioritize that, right? Like, there's other things that are happening and other trips. I have a buddy who's trying to get me to go down to Charleston the week before November, and he's like, "Well, you did a racing club thing before that, right?" So, like,
Nice.
Not only like the golf aspect of it, but the faith, the fellowship, the guys. I know my wife sees it and is like, "Oh my God, like this is something good
That's
for
cool.
us."
That's awesome. That's good. That's good to hear. That's an endorsement. When the Gearys are leading the marriage portion of our weekend somewhere where we're doing it, and they're kind of heading it up. So I'm speaking it. I love that.
Please, yeah, we gotta run back a couples event for sure. I say run back. We need to We need to get it together.
Yeah, it's been in the books for a minute, so we'll get it rolling. But all right, Matt. Danny and I are going to stay on because we have to do the closing. We usually talk about you. It's usually fun. No big deal. No, but we just do the closing stuff and then go back to bed. That's the key. We'll make it happen. But
with my job, I'm on calls with China and Japan all the time.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't too bad.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cakewalk.
I love it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, thanks, Matt.
Well, I appreciate you. Let me know if you need anything or when it's going to air, and super excited.
Thank you, man.
Thanks,
Have a good one. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah. See you, fellas.
All right, guys. That was season 2, episode 6 with our guy, Matt Geary out of Raleigh. Man, just another good one. So many good stories, Ryan.
Yeah, that guy. I keep talking about his voice. It's just so smooth. I'm just like, all right, this guy is going to teach me a Sunday school lesson. He'll also sell me a car. One of the two things are going to happen.
If he was selling, I was buying, no matter what was going down.
What a beautiful story. I love that. And I'm glad that everybody got to hear his journey and kind of who he is.
Absolutely. And he, of course, was at Builders Cup 2 with us last fall. Guys, we're really hoping to put together another solid event for anybody out there that's able to join us coming up soon. But until then, keep following us, certainly on Instagram, restoration_club, website restorationclub.co. Jump in the Discord, hoping to put some meetups together as we head into the fall season. Ryan, until next time, keep swinging.
Keep swinging.